Inspiring grandson exposes wealthy grandmother's shameful truth, changing lives forever. Max had always been the kind of guy who put in the hard work. At just 25, he balanced 2 jobs, delivering groceries and working at a local diner, while juggling classes at community college. He did it for his family, his strong and resilient mother, struggling to make ends meet since his father left. He often felt like a sturdy lifeboat, holding on to dreams of lifting them up from financial burdens. But on an ordinary afternoon, while making his usual delivery, he stumbled upon something extraordinary. His estranged grandmother, Evelyn, now living in his quaint suburban neighborhood. Initially, he was a whirlwind of curiosity, wondering how a woman with so much wealth could find herself here, among their struggles. With a nervous heart, Max knocked on her polished door, the kind of door that gleamed with privilege. When she answered, her gaze was cold and calculating, a stark contrast to the warmth of his mother's embrace. Behind the curtains of her veneer, Max detected a troubling reality. She harbored prejudices against the working class, accompanied by a disapproving frown that lingered longer than it should. As their encounters unfolded, Evelyn surprised Max with her hidden philanthropy. She anonymously funded local veterans and struggling families who stitched together their lives day by day. This was good, but why the secrecy? He felt both inspired and angered as he learned of her kindness. It was frustrating to see her try to separate herself from the very people she helped, like her contributions were dirty secrets. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by a desire to bring light to the shadows, Max posted about his findings online. The reaction was explosive. The town erupted into chaos, debates flaring within hours. Friends transformed into foes, neighbors whispered secrets, and Max's own family felt the strain. Could one man's pursuit of truth really unearth the roots of class division? As the complexities of wealth and privilege tangled tighter, Max had to confront his grandmother about her duality. When they finally spoke, the tension almost vibrated. He laid it all bare, their differences, her biases. Evelyn's walls began to crack as she faced the overwhelming proof of her hypocrisy. Yet just as they started to grasp the enormity of their shared challenge, their town was rocked by an unexpected crisis, an urgent need for resources that called upon the wealthy and the struggling alike to unite. With the stakes higher than ever, Max felt torn. Would he forgive Evelyn, or would the chasm between them and their communities only deepen? As the compassion of the townsfolk began to shine through the chaos, Max realized healing was possible, but only if both sides were willing to step forward. The true measure of wealth was showing up for one another, but would they take that leap together? Max stepped out of that meeting with Evelyn, heart racing. The weight of their conversation pulsed in his chest. He felt a mix of anger, betrayal, and an unexpected flicker of hope. Here was a woman who had built her castle of wealth on foundations of hard work and privilege, but also upon the silence of those beneath her. Yet, she was still family. He wrestled with the question, could he forgive her? The weeks after their conversation transformed the town into a battleground of divided loyalties. Every corner held whispers, fueled by his revelation like kindling to a flame. Social media buzzed, bringing people together yet pulling them apart. As tensions ratcheted up, Max found himself playing mediator in an increasingly fraught environment. In the diner, the usual chatter turned to uncertainty. Patrons who used to exchange light banter now eyed each other warily, pockets of anger bubbling under the surface. Can you believe Evelyn? Hiding behind that money? One waitress exclaimed, slamming down a glass of water. Don't forget what she does for us, another diner defended her, glancing nervously around as if voicing support would invite backlash. In the midst of this heated atmosphere, Max realized he had to do something beyond just exposing the truth. He couldn't fight fire with fire, he needed to find a bridge between the anger and hurt that suffocated his community. A plan began to form in his mind, a town hall meeting where everyone could voice their grievances, but also share their needs. As the day approached, Max felt a mix of trepidation and determination. Standing at the front of the community center, he watched people file in, faces set with varying degrees of skepticism and curiosity. He held a breath, steadying himself as he recalled the very family he worked so hard to protect and uplift. "Thank you all for coming," he began, calm yet assertive. "It's hard to see our town divided like this. There's a need for understanding between all of us, regardless of our backgrounds. Evelyn has helped countless families, but that help doesn't excuse her prejudice. We need change, and we need it together." The crowd stirred, emotion flickering in the air like flammable gas. He paused, looking out at familiar faces, neighbors, friends, even those who had never exchanged a word before. Evelyn arrived late. The room shifted as her presence consumed the space. Max felt the currents of tension tighten. She hesitated, stepping forward slowly, her expression a blend of regret and resilience. It struck him then that her wealth, while a shield, also boxed her in. As she stood in front of the community, the atmosphere crackled. "I've taken more than I've given. I'm here to understand, to change," she said, her voice wavering. "Change doesn't happen overnight, but I want to hear you." The murmurs began, unsure but curious. Would the townsfolk trust her? After so many years of estrangement? Max watched as people tested the waters, slowly opening up. Stories of struggles flowed, hearts began to unfreeze, and for the first time, he felt that the true healing could gain momentum. But a sudden interruption, another crisis. A younger family in the town had just lost their home in a fire, sending shockwaves through the community. Would Evelyn step up, proving her intentions? Max's heart raced again. The moment of truth loomed, perhaps more significant than his revelation could have ever prepared him for. Would they take the leap into solidarity when it was needed most? Would he find his voice loud enough to carry that weight? The answer hung heavily in the air, trembling with possibility. The room hummed with an uneasy energy. The news of the family's loss had spread like wildfire, igniting deep empathy in the hearts of those present. Max could hear whispers of concern, the ominous ticking of silence pressing in on him as he scanned the crowd. Judith, the mother of the family, had been a staple at the food pantry, always volunteering her time to help others. Losing her home wasn't just an event, it was a collective wound. "Evelyn," he started, his voice steady but full of urgency, "this is the moment to show that change isn't just talk. This is your chance to step up." He felt every eye in the room dart towards her, anticipating her reaction. Evelyn inhaled sharply, her gaze shifting to the empty chair meant for Judith. For a moment, the facade of privilege crumbled, revealing a woman who felt small under the weight of her past decisions. "What can I do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, vulnerability breaking through her polished exterior. Max's heart quickened. This was the moment he wasn't sure would come. Help them rebuild their lives, Evelyn. Not just with money, but with action. Provide them shelter, support, something tangible. There was a shift in the atmosphere as murmurs began again. Some people nodded in agreement while others frowned, wary of her promises. "They deserve more than charity, they need a champion," he pressed on, seeing the crowd hungering for real change. Evelyn took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself. I can offer them a place to stay at my estate, until they find a new home." Gasps rippled through the room. Max saw the stunned reactions, hope mixed with skepticism. Would she follow through? Could she truly be the ally they needed? Words are one thing, he reminded the crowd. Her actions have to match her intentions. They have to do the work together, or it won't mean anything. Evelyn straightened, her resolve hardening. "I will match every dollar raised for them," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "Let us start a fundraiser tonight. Whatever it takes, I'm in." Cheers erupted from one side of the room, mixed with moans of doubt from the other. Max was on a tightrope. The fractures remained visible, but here was the first brick laid in a bridge. A connection. Before Max could process the moment, Judith entered, wearing the weight of loss on her shoulders. "What is going on?" she asked, bewilderment painted across her face. The room fell silent, all attention shifting to her. Evelyn stepped toward her, confidence radiating. "Judith, I know what you lost. I'm so sorry. I want to help." "What? Help?" After Judith's words tumbled out, laced with disbelief and hurt. Max held his breath, every pause stretching like a thread ready to snap. Would she accept Evelyn's offer, or would the pain of betrayal be too much to bear? The room waited, the air thick with anticipation. That he glanced at Judith, seeing the flicker of emotion in her eyes. Was it anger? Sadness? A glimmer of hope? As the first tear slipped down Judith's cheek, Max's heart thundered. This was just the beginning of understanding. The path forward was fraught with emotion, but it was also paved with possibility. What would they all decide collectively and individually? Max felt the weight of that question lifting into the air, a haunting echo begging for resolution. And more importantly, would this fragile truce slip through their fingers like water when faced with the bitter reality of their pasts? Judith stood frozen, her heart racing as she wrestled with conflicting emotions. The moment felt surreal, almost as if the room had vanished, leaving just the three of them standing amidst the chaos of loss and hope. Judith Evelyn's voice was softer now, genuine. "I truly want to help. Your family shouldn't have to face this alone." In the back of his mind, Max wondered if Judith could ever see Evelyn's words as anything but hollow gestures, rich people saying they cared without really understanding the depth of pain they were swimming in. He held on to a flicker of hope, watching as Judith's expression shifted. "What does that mean?" Judith finally asked, her voice cracking under the weight of skepticism. "Is it just a bit of charity? Or do you really care?" Evelyn's hands trembled slightly. "I want to help you rebuild everything: your home, your life. I will make this happen, not just for you but for all the families in our community. I promise, it's real." The silence stretched, thick with uncertainty. Max could see Judith's guarded heart begin to crack, just a little, like ice melting under the sun. "It's easy to offer a place to stay, but what if you tire of us?" Evelyn looked her straight in the eyes, a sincerity in her gaze that made Max's heart leap. "I won't tire. I promise to stand by you and your family, to be your champion. We can work this together." "But you're not like us," Judith countered, her voice filled with hurt. "You don't know what it's like to worry about tomorrow." "I'm learning," Evelyn replied, her voice shaking slightly but steady. "I'm learning what it means to be part of this community. I want to understand. I want to be better." Judith took a step back, feeling the room close in around her. She needed time to sort through the storm of emotions, the disbelief wrapped tightly around a fragile glimmer of hope. The crowd fidgeted, the tension palpable. Max felt a mix of pride and anxiety. This wasn't just a discussion about shelter anymore, it had evolved into raw vulnerability laid bare. Would they bridge the gap between their worlds, or would this moment slip away? "Okay," Judith finally breathed, tension easing just a fraction. "Let us say I accept your offer." A collective gasp broke out in the room, eyes darting between the two women. Max winced at the sound. Would it be the sound of hope or doubt? Judith met Evelyn's gaze, searching for sincerity. "What about your friends? Do they even want to help?" Evelyn nodded, determination written across her face. "We'll create something that lasts. A support network, a place where we can all come together. It starts here, tonight." The crowd erupted, a mix of cheers and whispers. Max felt his heart race, caught up in their excitement. But he was also aware of the road ahead, steep and covered in obstacles. As he glanced over to Judith, he sensed her resolve strengthen, but with it came uncertainty. Could all this truly be built upon such raw emotions? Max stepped forward, determined to guide them through the intricate dance of rebuilding trust. Let us move forward, but we need to listen, really listen to each other. It's going to hurt. But pain can lead to healing if we let it. The murmurs turned to discussions, hands now raised with questions. Hope bloomed, fragile but beautiful. Evelyn and Judith stood side by side, two women from divided worlds, united in purpose though shadows loomed behind them like ghosts ready to disrupt. Max knew deep down they were just at the beginning of something significant. As their conversation swelled, he felt the urge to steer them past comfort and into the raw, real nature of connection. But would that connection survive the trials ahead? He took a breath, the weight of unspoken truths surrounding them. What would it take to face the hidden scars and unveil the stories that bound them together? The energy in the room shifted. Judith took a deep breath, a battle of emotions swirling in her chest. It was a tentative acceptance, yet the questions loomed. What did it truly mean to lean on someone like Evelyn? Could trust bloom from the ashes of their differences? Tell me more about this support network, Judith spoke, her tone softer but edged with resolve. The crowd leaned in expectantly, hearts pounding in anticipation. Max could see the tension in Judith's shoulders ease just a bit as she held on to that flicker of hope. Evelyn glanced around, her eyes lighting up with excitement. We will bring everyone together, those who have lost, and those who have resources to give. We'll form groups, people helping in whatever way they can, whether that's shelter or support or job training. We have to break down these walls that separate us. Sounds nice, Judith said slowly, skepticism remaining. But how do you make that all happen? It just sounds like words. Evelyn opened her mouth to reply, but Judith's voice gathered strength, spilling forth like a dam bursting. You don't understand what it feels like to lose everything. People aren't just numbers or projects, they are lives shattered and families torn apart. I can't trust you to lead when there's so much at stake. Evelyn's expression faltered slightly, but then she firmed her jaw. You're right. I don't know every struggle you've faced, but I promise I will learn. I'm not here to fix you or your problems, I'm here to stand alongside you. A hush fell over the crowd, each person wrestling with their emotions. Max took a step closer, eyeing both women before he threw in, Judith, Evelyn wants to be part of this community, and that's a start. She's opened the door, we just need to walk through it together. Tension threaded through the air, thick and palpable. Judith's eyes darted around the room, and Max felt the collective breath held tight. This wasn't just about her anymore, this was about everyone present, their hopes tangled in the uncertainty of the future. What about those who don't believe? Judith asked, vulnerability spilling through her bravado. Evelyn nodded thoughtfully. That's where we begin. We acknowledge the doubts. We share our stories. Sometimes the hardest truth is what binds us. Together, we can shine a light into those dark corners. A ripple of nods and murmurs ignited, it sparked a flicker of excitement. But Judith remained cautious. And what if it fails? She pulled her gaze away, arms crossing protectively. Max cleared his throat. What if it succeeds? His voice softened with conviction. What if it provides hope to those who've lost everything? Maybe it's not about success or failure, it's about stepping forward, hand in hand, no matter how small the steps. Judith's walls began to crumble, brick by brick. Hope bloomed amidst the despair, and Max could feel it. If they could navigate this rising tide together, perhaps they could truly create change. What do we do first? Judith asked, uncertainty still dancing in her eyes but something else flickering beneath the courage to try. Evelyn's face lit up. We come up with ideas and share them. Everyone here has something to offer, even if it's just a suggestion. And we'll meet again to discuss what we can do. The room erupted with enthusiasm, a scattered melody of voices sharing thoughts, fears, and dreams. Judith stood a little taller, her heart racing with the energy around her. Maybe, just maybe, They would find a way forward. Max stepped back, observing the transformations happening around him, the energy electric, the uncertainty slowly dissolving. But as he looked at the faces lit with hope, one question lingered: could this unity truly withstand the storms looming ahead? As the buzz of voices filled the space, a shadow crossed Judith's face. She briefly glanced at Evelyn, the weight of her past heavy in the air. Could their new path overshadow the rifts of distrust? Only time would tell, but for the first time in a long while, the future felt a little brighter. Judith felt a surge of energy as ideas began to bounce around the room. It was contagious the way people lit up as they shared the things they could offer. Someone proposed a meal train for families in need. Another suggested workshops where people could learn to market their skills. Even the simplest ideas held weight, as their potential sprouted in ways Judith had only hoped for. "All right, let us take action." Evelyn's enthusiasm radiated through the space, invigorating the crowd. Judith watched her. There was a sincerity in Evelyn that did not just demand trust but seemed to earn it, inch by inch. Still, doubt flickered in Judith's mind, gnawing at her as she held back the urge to dive fully into this new vision. The planning began to take shape. Judith found herself grouped with a small team of neighbors, faces she knew but never really talked to. They gathered around a table, scribbling ideas and tentative plans on bits of paper. Names flew around: Carla, the mother down the street; Frank, retired and looking for purpose; Alice, who had a knack for cooking. Judith smiled, feeling a sense of belonging she hadn't realized she craved. "Let us call it Neighbors United," Carla suggested, her eyes bright. The name itself felt like a promise. Judith felt a flutter in her chest, tenderness spilling out into the smile that crept across her face. Maybe this could work. But as the meeting unfolded, the crowd's energy oscillated with excitement and another layer of emotion. A tall man named Ben stood up, his voice shaky. "I've been thinking, my family is struggling. We lost our home last year. It tore us apart. I want to help, but I'm not sure how." Silence washed over the group. Eyes turned to him, each heart quiet in understanding. Judith felt an ache as she recalled the weight of her own struggles. The past echoed in his words, a reminder that pain could weave through their shared narrative. "We're all learning together," Evelyn said gently, stepping closer to Ben. "Your story is powerful, it's what we need to gather strength. Let us find a way to share that. Maybe we can have a story night where anyone who wants can share their journey." "Can we really do that?" Judith interjected, barely holding back her emotions. "What if some stories are too hard to bear? What if it hurts too much?" Evelyn met her gaze, strong yet vulnerable. "That's the point, Judith. We face our truths and let them guide us toward healing. We can build a foundation by being real with each other." The room held its breath, uncertainty mingling with hope. Judith's heart raced as she considered the weight of that intention. Could they truly face their truths together? The idea of vulnerability sunk in deeper, igniting both fear and wild anticipation. As the meeting continued, Judith began to feel a warmth creeping into her chest, a growing hope rooted in something bigger than herself. The tension that once held her tightly began to lift. Laughter replaced some of the tears, and through small conversations, friendships began to emerge, but as they made plans, Judith's mind drifted back to those unanswered questions. What if her hope crumbled again? What if their pasts haunted them too deeply? Max sat nearby, catching her eye, and seemed to sense her worries. "You know, it's okay to feel scared. That's part of the process. Just take it one step at a time." Judith nodded slowly, the corners of her mouth lifting, though doubt still simmered beneath the surface. As faces filled with purpose and fire surrounded her, the shadows of her past threatened to loom larger than the hope blossoming with each exchanged word. How would they confront what lay ahead once those shadows became undeniable? She shook the thought from her mind, determined to focus on this moment. But that tug of uncertainty remained, whispering a question that refused to fade: could sharing their pain really lead them to a brighter future? Judith's hopes blossomed like wildflowers in spring, but the lingering shadows of doubt remained, casting a veil as soft as mist. The room pulsed with excitement, the potential of their new venture swirling around them. A dozen voices merged into a hum of collaboration, yet there was Judith, torn between eagerness and trepidation. "Who wants to lead the first story night?" Evelyn asked, eyes bright as a cloudless sky. Silence fell again. Faces shifted, glances exchanged uneasily, as if the weight of vulnerability pressed down upon all of them. Judith swallowed hard. It was easy to suggest sharing stories, but standing up and bearing one's soul? That was another matter entirely. Frank leaned forward, hands gripping the table tightly. "I think it should be a rotating thing. Each week, someone different shares. It builds trust, like a circle we can all lean into." Encouraged, Judith found herself yearning to volunteer, yet she hesitated, heart pounding against her ribs. What if she failed? What if no one connected with what she shared? Her insecurities lurked like ghosts, whispering harsh truths. As Judith's internal battle continued, Ben spoke up again. "I'll go first." His voice trembled, but there was something powerful in it too. "My family lost everything. I never talk about it, but maybe that's what we all need." Beneath that thick tension, Judith felt a flicker of bravery stir within her. Watching Ben rise, an ache she hadn't felt in years washed over her. His courage reminded her of her own struggles, of nights spent questioning her worth, of moments she felt invisible. Jack, sitting next to Ben, joined the circle, raising a hand. "If Ben's brave enough to share, I will too. I was there when my parents couldn't keep their house." The rawness in his voice echoed in Judith's heart, flickering into life a shared pain that begged for unity. With each new face that opened up, Judith watched the doubt in the air loosen its grip, filling the space with hope. The weight of their stories wove around them like a quilt, a tapestry of heartache and healing. Judith leaned into the feeling, allowing a slow breath to release the tension wrapped tightly around her heart. This could be the start of something powerful, a shift towards understanding, compassion, and healing for everyone. But then, another thought crept in. What if not everyone had the same courage? What if someone held back the truth, leaving fragments of their heart unexplored? She bit her lip as an unexpected tear pooled in her eye, blurring the faces around her. "Judith?" Max's voice broke through the fog of her thoughts, soft and warm. "You all right?" She blinked, pulling herself back into the moment. The room faded away, and there was only Max's concerned gaze meeting hers. I hope we can manage the weight of everyone's stories," she confessed. Max smiled gently, nodding. "We will. Together. But you'll have to share yours too." A wave of warmth swelled inside her, fighting back the doubts inching toward the surface. Could she really take that step forward? Could her story intertwine with the fragile hopes they were all building? Maybe. The word slipped out, uncertain yet hopeful. The energy swelled as everyone began brainstorming ways to support one another through this emotional sharing. Judith felt something deep within shift again, a little more darkness peeling away. It was exciting, this journey they had set upon, yet a part of her remained cautious, a question lingering in the air like a half-finished thought. Would this shared experience expose the raw truths of their lives or leave them even more fragile than before? As the meeting unfolded, Judith's heart raced, both for the promise of connection and the fear of the unknown. Could she embrace her fears and step into that light? Would they all meet in brightness, or would shadows linger long after the stories were shared? With the night drawing to a close and hope brewing like a fresh cup of coffee, the possibility of revelations felt tangible. Would Judith find the courage to stand and share, or would fear keep her silent? What truths would be unveiled next, both in her and in others? She couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Judith's heart still raced as the meeting began to wind down. The table was strewn with empty coffee cups and crumpled notes, each mark of their conversation a silent witness to the vulnerabilities shared, yet something inside her felt heavier. She glanced around, noticing the mix of excitement and anxiety flickering across the faces of her friends. They were all navigating uncharted waters together, yet Judith felt anchored, uncertain if she could let go of her own fears and dive in. "Okay, everyone," Evelyn's cheery voice broke through her thoughts. "Let us set a date for our first story night. How about next week?" A chorus of agreement reverberated through the room, punctuated by nervous laughter. Beneath their easy smiles, Judith could see the echoes of trepidation. She dared to offer a smile, but inside, the knot in her stomach twisted tighter. "Because if we're going to do this, we need to start making it real," Evelyn continued, her enthusiasm infectious. "We can't just talk about sharing, we have to actually do it." Judith felt her breath hitch, heart pounding as she fought the urge to flee. What if she didn't have anything worthwhile to say? What if she stood up there, words scrambling, her story falling flat? Frank, keenly aware of the silence curling in around Judith, leaned closer. "Sometimes the hardest part is just starting. I've found that the best stories come from the parts we think are small. It's those moments that really connect us." His words stuck to Judith like a lifeline, sending a rush of warmth through her. Maybe it was true. Maybe it didn't have to be perfect. Maybe it just had to be honest. But what was honest for her? Val, usually full of laughter, had turned reflective. "I lost my dad a few years back, and honestly, I never talked about it. Maybe this is my chance to finally let it out." There it was again, that universal ache of shared grief pulsing in the room. Judith could feel it, the distinct buzz of truth mingling with the fear of being laid bare. And yet, she couldn't help but wonder, what would she share? Was there enough courage deep within to unveil her own scars? "We'll be here for each other," Max reminded everyone, and Judith found her gaze drifting back to him. His steady smile radiated comfort, a grounding force. "Whatever comes out, we'll handle it together. Isn't that what friends are for?" His words ignited a tiny spark inside Judith. She needed to challenge herself. But what if she was both the problem and the solution? At that moment, she realized that her story could be a thread woven into their collective tapestry. As the meeting drew to a close, Judith lingered, her pulse racing, uncertainty still a close companion. If she found a way to share, it could spark something powerful. It could lead to understanding and the relief of weighty secrets finally being shared. But as she left, a quiet voice whispered, what if her story didn't resonate? What if she failed to bridge that gap? The burden of uncertainty trailed her like a stubborn shadow. With every step toward the door, she could already feel the itch of doubt creeping in again. Would she be brave enough to stand beneath the spotlight when the time came? Suddenly, Ben's voice broke through her thoughts again, recalling his courage as he shared his truth. As she stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around her, refreshing but not quite soothing. Would she find an ember of bravery to turn into a flame? As Judith walked through the dimly lit parking lot, her heart pounding with excitement and fear, she couldn't shake the feeling that next week would be a defining moment. What would she decide to reveal, and would it unleash the very change she feared or hoped for? Judith paused, her fingers resting on the car door, pondering the upcoming story night. Would she step into that light, or would she let the shadows hold her back once more? The question hung heavy in the air as she prepared to dive deeper into the unknown. The days leading up to story night felt like an eternity. Judith found herself caught in a whirlwind of anticipation and fear. Each morning, she'd wake with a new thought, a fresh idea of what she might share. But as day turned to night, each notion faded into doubt. She scribbled fragments in her journal, words that felt inadequate when stacked against the stories of her friends. At work, the chatter of her co-workers faded into a distant hum. As the clock ticked, all she could think about was that circle of friends, the warmth of their presence a contrasting backdrop to her own inner turmoil. She could picture them sitting around the table, eager faces turned toward her, waiting. The image made her stomach churn. "Judith? You in there?" Sarah, her boss, waved a hand in front of her, pulling Judith back into the present. "Yeah, sorry. Just got lost in thought," Judith replied, forcing a smile. "Well, don't drown in there too long," Sarah replied with a laugh. "We need your spark today." That word, spark, rattled in Judith's mind. What if she could ignite something? A fire in her heart leapt momentarily at the thought, but just as quickly, doubt smothered it. The night of the first story gathering arrived. The chill in the air was invigorating as she stepped out of her car. Judith's pulse quickened as she walked to the front door of Evelyn's house, the laughter and voices spilling out like a warm invitation. Inside, the cozy atmosphere enveloped her, but the looming question of what to share twisted in her gut. Max spotted her first and bounded over, his energy infectious. "Judith! You made it!" He beamed. "Are you ready?" Judith opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. Instead, she nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and fear bubbling within her. Others had gathered in small clusters, nerves interwoven with laughter and hushed conversations. It was a room full of stories waiting to be told. "Let us grab a seat," Evelyn called, drawing everyone's attention. The living room felt electric with anticipation as they settled in, an assortment of blankets and pillows creating a nest for their vulnerabilities. Judith's heart raced. She glanced around the circle, her friends' faces illuminated by the soft glow of lamps. They were ready to connect, to share their truths. What was her truth? Would it matter? That feeling of courage flickered and sputtered as she clenched her hands in her lap. Evelyn stood. "Okay, everyone. Who wants to go first?" Silence fell, thick and palpable. Judith felt her throat dry. This was the moment she dreaded, the moment that could either unveil her or silence her forever. "I'll go." Val's voice broke through, filled with a trembling strength. Judith watched as Val stood, summoning every bit of courage, and began to speak about her father. It was raw and real, each word a fragment of her heart laid bare. The room grew quiet, fully absorbing Val's journey through pain and ultimately into healing. Judith felt the power of connection wash over her. Everyone nodded, tears brimming in their eyes. When Val finished, the emotional weight was still fresh. Judith felt a pressure building within her. Could she allow her own truth to resonate in such a space? What if her story rang hollow compared to the currents of life flowing around her? But before she could spiral further, Max leaned closer to her. "You ready, Judith? Whenever you feel it, let it out. We've got your back," he whispered, his steady gaze urging her on. The warmth of his encouragement wrapped around her, igniting that spark again. Judith rose to her feet, heart racing, breath catching. It was time. She could feel the collective hope and support in the room, wrapping around her like a blanket, inviting her to uncover what lay beneath her silence. Her voice trembled, but she was determined. "I want to share something too." As she began to reveal her truth, a weight lifted off her shoulders, but little did she know, the words she unleashed would set off a ripple of change far beyond her own heart. Would her story ignite a flame in everyone else, like Val's had? The air was thick with emotion. She could feel the turning point. In that moment, she understood, sharing could be a rebirth, not only for her, but for those she cared about most. But just as she began to find her rhythm, a thought interrupted her flow. What if this revelation didn't land as she hoped? What if it changed everything? The question lingered, and Judith felt the gravity of her words hanging in the air as the room leaned in closer, waiting. Judith stood at the crossroads of fear and courage, her voice trembling but insistent. "I lost my job last year. I thought it couldn't get worse. I hid it, thinking I could figure it out on my own." Each word felt like it was peeling back layers, exposing parts of herself she had kept buried. The truth is, she paused, the weight of all the hidden moments crashing in. "I've been scared. Scared that I wouldn't make it. So scared that I let my family down that I stopped asking for help. And I realize now, keeping it all inside just made everything heavier." Silence wrapped around the room, but not the kind of silence that suffocates. It was a hush full of connection and understanding. She could feel the air thick with compassion, the weight of shared struggles echoing in the hearts of everyone gathered. Judith felt the ripple start a shift in how they all saw each other. And suddenly, her small flame didn't feel so small anymore. As she embraced her truth, one by one, others began to share theirs. Ben stood up, a flicker of hope lighting his eyes as he revealed his family's losses, how they had to move into a tiny apartment and how making ends meet felt like juggling knives. His shared pain acted like a match, igniting others to share their stories too. "Last winter, my daughter got sick," Jack revealed. "I couldn't afford her medication. It made me feel helpless." The room breathed together, the connections weaving tighter. Judith felt her heart expand. They were all bearing pieces of each other's burdens. Tears flowed freely now, not just hers. Each story echoed a mirror image of struggles, a vault of shared pain that transformed their gathering into a safe haven. Evelyn, for once, was silent, but closely engaged, her features softening as she observed the moment of pure vulnerability unfolding. It struck her deeply. She lost sight of the very people that her privilege had separated her from. "Judy," Max whispered suddenly, breaking through the vulnerability, "your bravery is infectious. This is what we need, a real connection that breaks down our walls." As if awakened from a dream, Judith smiled, recognizing this was what she had feared and wanted all along, a bond formed through shared experiences and honest vulnerabilities. With trembling resolve, she said, "And this goes beyond just telling stories. We need to think about how we can support each other. What if we set up a system where we can directly help without shame?" The buzz in the room grew. Ideas flowed, people sharing skills, creating meal trains, helping one another find jobs, volunteering as mentors. Each suggestion echoed with acceptance, solidifying their bond deeper than Judith ever imagined possible. Then Evelyn stepped forward, her voice breaking slightly yet filled with determination. "I see my privilege now, and I can't erase it. But I can use it to help. So from now on, I'm in. Let us not just talk about support, let us act on it." Her words struck the hearts of many in the room. Judith felt the stirrings of hope cradled in the embrace of change. They had found a way to lift each other up instead of keeping each other at arm's length. The meeting turned into a whirlwind of ideas, and laughter filled the spaces in between once serious confessions. Judith could feel the dark weight dissolve into the air as the community transformed into a vivid tapestry of shared hopes and healing connections. Weeks passed. The story nights became therapeutic, a gathering of warmth where they began to truly build the fabric of support they all craved. They stood together in laughter and tears, a community forged from sorrow that transitioned into hope, helping one another learn to brave the storms ahead. Judith realized that this was what it meant to be truly alive, not just surviving, but sharing, laughing, and embracing every part of their humanity together. She felt free from the wild shroud of isolation that had once consumed her. As she looked around at her friends, her heart swelled with joy. They were no longer fears to be faced, but partners in life's unpredictable play. And as for Evelyn, she became not just family, but an ally championing those she once overlooked, a first step toward bridging every gap that had kept them apart. This was their new beginning, a story of resilience entwined in every chamber of their hearts, an anthem of hope overflowing all boundaries. They had each other's backs, driven by a desire to forge connections that would last a lifetime. Judith took a deep breath, her smile radiant. "You know," she said, voice steady and resolute, "this is just the start of something beautiful." And the room erupted once more, the unbroken thread of understanding weaving throughout their lives, binding them together in a powerful testament to the very essence of community. The future was no longer daunting, it shimmered with possibilities, their hearts aligned toward a horizon woven with shared purpose and newfound strength. Your voice matters. Don't sit on the sidelines, now is the time to join our community. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Comment below with your feelings about this transformation and what you're taking away from this journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation happen right before their eyes. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Be the change you want to see.